because if we keep only allowing for the money that we have to stay with us and everyone that comes behind us to have to continue to keep rebuilding when all the other cultures are passing wealth down, we're going to continue to be behind. And so that's something that's very important for me to educate people, because I didn't have this education. My mother wasn't educated, but she didn't know, so she couldn't pass it down. She did fortunately pass down an inheritance. Unfortunately, my mother transitioned when I was only in my early 20s. And so I wanted to do something that was important and leave a legacy. And so I went into business with the money that she left me. But that money didn't last very long, not because I did something frivolous, but because I didn't understand that you can't put all your money in one place without protecting your assets first. My sister currently has none of her money, and she had more education than me. But the education in the wrong areas does not help you to be able to take care of your financial health if you don't know. And so consequently, with master's degrees and all the type of degrees that my sister had, she basically lost all of the money, and it was over 6 figures.
Wow.
And so having gone through these experiences and being in a situation where I did not have a lot of hope that I was going to be able to do anything different other than continue to work, and hopefully that I can work my way, out of my dilemma. And when I learned that this information existed and how it could really change not only my lives, but the lives of other people, I really began to gravitate toward it. I learned it over several years. Took me a while. I had mentors. I still have mentors, and I try and mentor as many people as I can, because I want to make sure that not only am I going to be all right, but that I can make sure as many people that will listen will learn this information and understand. And when it comes down to the information related to insurance, it's information that, unfortunately, is like putting information in a book that we don't read. We believe things about insurance that most people, that people that have a lot of wealth understand differently. And so we use insurance differently, and as a result, we're using it the wrong way, and we're not benefiting from the fact that life insurance is for people that are still alive, as well as obviously taking care of those that no longer are with us.
The being associated with those words, life insurance, sometimes it can give a negative effect on somebody. Well, when you're young and you're moving on, because I got a young DJ sitting across from me, he rolling all the time. And you're young and you're living your life, and somebody say, well, brother, don't you think it's time to think about life insurance policy? So some of the reactions we might get from some people is, well, that's for old people. And that's for people who want to dwell on the negative, they might not be living in the next couple of years. And how do you break through that notion and explain to people how financially important in your community that you should take a look at having life insurance?
Well, one of the ways is through the education. I actually, believe it or not, have a mentor who was only 29 years old. And when I met him, he was only 21 or 22. Now, this young man, because of his mentorship that he received, at an early age changed his thought process, because he started to see that if he wanted to be like the person who was mentoring him, he had to follow what he was saying to him. And so he learned more about what insurance had to offer. And as a result, he was able to understand that life insurance is for the living as well, and that he always wanted. And so now he has the car of his dreams. He has multiple rental properties. He has a business that he does T-shirts and various other items that he sells. And he has the investments in stocks and some, I think, even cryptocurrency and things of that nature, because he understood how to take this solid financial footing, and he is able to take advantage of the various opportunities that have come his way because he understood how to utilize it. As a result of him learning, he has passed that information, to me. It's not too. You're never too old
Right.
to learn from someone else. It doesn't make a difference who that person is. If they have more information to share, then you need to listen. And so I have humbly listened to him and received a lot of information. Sometimes I didn't believe that he was the right person to help me or
Right.
talk to someone else for me, but he has actually, I've watched him even mature more and be able to do a better job because he's continually receiving information
Mhm.
and passing it on to other young people. He actually has his own young people's information with people in his age.
Mhm. Wow. And so, Brother Keith, you had a question?
Yeah. Ms. Honorary, what's the different types of life insurance, and can you break down what each type is and what they do?
Okay, well, insurance basically, when you want to think about insurance, it's really two main types: temporary and permanent. Temporary is for just that purpose. Temporarily insuring you to do whatever it is that you're trying to do for a period of time. Most situations it's because a person wants to take care of a situation like their mortgage, like being able to put their children through college, like a business loan, and things of that nature. And so that it is not going to be something that they're going to be able to carry throughout the rest of their life in most cases, because if even if you're in your 30s and say you got a 35-year-old 35 term policy, you're going to be 65 by the time that term is over. Well, unfortunately, as you get older, you also pay more for insurance. And so if your term is over at 65 and you need to get new insurance, where you might have been paying, let's say, only $30, that insurance is going to literally go up 10 times or more. And unfortunately, in most cases, people are not going to be able to afford to keep it. And so if you're not aware of why you have a term policy, it can be that they had no understanding was going to term out, and now they're in their 60s or 70s, and they're now frustrated because insurance is so much more, and they can't find a policy for the same amount of coverage, and they didn't understand that this was going to happen. Now, when you talk about permanent insurance covers things like full life, and it covers universal life policies. And universal life has different categories. And so these policies have some cash value, and depending upon the type of policy it is, they may have more or less. Whole life policies where most of our parents and grandparents probably started with insurance, because they were policies that gave people sometimes gave insurance a bad name sometimes, because they were small policies that cost, that you paid for, and by the time you got through paying for it, you were ending up paying for it multiple times the face value of what you had.
Right.
And so even so most of our parents that were not properly explained. As we fast forward, we now have what we call index universal life policy. These are the type of policies that we generally try and help people understand are the most beneficial if they're able to take advantage of them, because they have the ability to not only give that person the insurance coverage that they need, but they also give the person the ability to have cash accumulation within those policies that can give them the type of money that this young man that I just spoke about, has to be able to invest in other things, and also give them way more interest than they're getting in a bank account or savings account, and most importantly, money that is saved within a life insurance policy is tax-free money.
Okay.
That's very, very important, but not have to deal with the risk of the market. And so you can grow this money, you can get compounding interest, and you don't have to worry about the risk. And so with those three factors, it's very, very beneficial to be able to have at least some, if not all, of your money in this type of policy. And finally, which, really is why I wanted to talk today, it has something called living benefits. Living benefits, everyone needs to know about, because these are benefits, whether you have a temporary policy or a permanent policy, that you are able to use a lump sum from your policy to cover major medical issues, health issues such as terminal illnesses, chronic illness, or you have issues with incontinence or being able to feed yourself or various things of that nature. And then finally, critical issues such as a heart attack, stroke, ALS, various types of ailments that unfortunately we are having the policy while you're alive that gives you the opportunity to use it and cover additional expenses that aren't covered by your health insurance, to be able to make sure that you and your family are okay. But most of the time, unfortunately, we just don't know that these even exist because it's not in any of the policies that most of us have or have heard about. And it's a recent benefit that is now part of insurance.
A couple of questions I want to ask, like I discussed with you last night. The term whole life and term life insurance, the differences, with the type of life insurance. And I'm focusing mainly on life insurance, so that's an important issue right now. I just want to ask you expertise on that. And the issue of people who drop coverage or let their coverage lapse, whether or not they can get some type of value out of it once they let it lapse for a couple of months, or it depends on the insurance. And even all the advertising going out in our community about getting some life insurance. You've seen all the commercials, people just willy-nilly dialing telephone numbers and signing up for these things, and we don't know if there's some good products. We don't know. We don't have anybody besides, first one in our community on these platforms to come and explain what's going on with that. And the thing, so I don't know if you want to speak to that, but certainly the community could use some guidance from the experts on stuff like that.
Well, thank you for that question. And yes, we did have a good conversation on that yesterday. And in regards to, first of all, I think we talked about policies and lapsing of policies.
Mm-hmm.
Once a policy lapses, it's lapsed to the point where it goes past a period of time that the insurance company will allow it to be recovered, then the person will have to be reinstated by going through the entire process again. Mm-hmm. However, if a person has a policy and they're struggling with that policy, and it's the person that I'm dealing with, I usually will try and work with them to help them understand that there are alternatives if they only talk to the person that brought them that policy or the company that they're dealing with, so that they can help work out something before the cost of what it is to catch up becomes too much to where they can't afford it. One of the things about the policies that I typically deal with when we talk about the index universal life is that there's a flexibility of the premium. Mm-hmm. At times you can reduce it, and at times you can decrease it. And so because of that, there is flexibility depending upon how long that policy has been enforced, that you can change the amount of money that you're paying to give you a break if you're having some financial challenges. I have had to do that, and I constantly make contact with or I would say at least an average of annually make contact with the persons that I do business with to make sure that everything is okay. There haven't been any changes that they need to think about, and if there's anything that they want to consider in terms of having to maybe change in regards to the premium they're paying or so on, so that they're able to make sure that they can keep this policy. Because I think the biggest problem in our community in keeping policies is the fact that we don't understand the value.
Right.
We have insurance for everything else. We have insurance for our health, for our home, for our car, for our cell phone. And we understand that if we don't pay those premiums, that something is not as bad is going to happen, meaning we're not going to have the coverage. And that coverage is very important because we need that home, that our health insurance and whatever. But people, for whatever reason, don't seem to value that same concept when it comes down to life insurance, which to me is one of the most important insurances you can pay, because it literally not only has to do with your life, but if you have a family, your family's life as well. Because if you don't have insurance, then if something happens to you, I mean, I just went through it with my family, where everyone's struggling around trying to figure out how they're going to scrape up money to put you away.
Right.
And that's ridiculous to me that we're doing GoFundMes as our form of insurance in our community, and that's across the country. GoFundMe was not designed to be insurance. It is, a benefit, but that's not the way it should be, because when you do a GoFundMe, you can only get but so much, and it's going to take you a minute, and it's, there's money that comes out of it, and you really are not looking at, insurance is designed to protect you and your family. So if your family needs hundreds of thousands of dollars once you are no longer here to be able to take care of mortgages and college expenses and the many expenses that maybe you were helping to contribute to, a GoFundMe that you put together that's going to give you a few $1,000s to bury you is not going to be the answer. And so we have to be more educated on the fact that insurance is just as important as that cell phone. And and life insurance, I'm going to say, is just as important as that cell phone insurance, and in fact, more so.
Yeah, some people will pay more money for iPhone insurance than the life insurance. He has another question.
Some insurance companies or some insurance policies have a waiting period. Correct. Can you talk about that? Because I know some people who have dealt with it where the full benefits took effect because there was a waiting period.
Yes. Well, I'll just be perfectly transparent in regards to why that is. It's not that the companies so much have it, it's because of, unfortunately, the fact that our health issues cause us to get policies that what they call are called graded, meaning that they give you a certain amount of coverage, but you can't get the full coverage until they get a chance to see if you're going to survive for the next 2 or 3 years, so that they're not paying out as soon as they cover you. I have a person that I was visiting, in fact, they were in Texas, and they had just retired, and they got a policy, and this policy actually was through their union. Which I was really surprised, because I would think the union would maybe make a little bit, screen certain companies a little bit better to see what they're offering. Now, she's in her 70s, but she got, and she's in very good health. I mean, in fact, she teaches exercise classes, so there's no issue in terms of health. She had a policy for $5,000. Now, imagine, what can you do with $5,000 when you're talking about burial? Very, very little. So I don't know why she got that policy, other than the fact that it was probably presented to her at the union. But in addition to the fact that it was only $5,000, the policy was graded, meaning she would only have access if, because if her family, if she transitioned in 2 years, within 2 years of getting the policy, she only had access to $2,500 of that policy until the 3rd year. And so this is being done, unfortunately, in our community quite a bit.
Yes.
And some of it is because of the type of policies that we're getting, that we're not understanding, that they're not good policies, and maybe you're not paying a lot for them, but you're not getting anything for them. So the money you are paying really is not going to anything. And it is also because a lot of the times we have health issues that in order for them to insure you at all, they're saying, okay, well, we'll insure you, but we're going to wait a while to see if you're going to still be with us. Another thing that I want to bring up is that the same person that had the $5,000 policy had what was called an accidental death policy. Now, I've come across those policies quite a bit where a person may have just $1,000 in accidental death, and they'll tell me, oh yes, I got a lot of different insurance coverage, I have this and that, and they're paying pennies for that. Why are they paying pennies? Because that company knows there is very slim chance that you're going to ever pay out on an accidental death policy, because you can think about it. The only way most times that we die in an accidental situation is in an accident.
Yes.
So other than that, your death is not going to be considered accidentally, and so that is really not. It's that coverage. I may not say that if you shouldn't have it, but if that's all you have, it's definitely not going to be beneficial for you and your family in the long run.
But what about what we call instant payout? Meaning, if you sign up for life insurance and basically that if something happened within 1 or 2 months to you and you die, that your beneficiary could be paid instantly. Do they have that such problem? Because there's a lot of those companies that we see advertising on TV, they're not very clear on those policies.
Well, and that's why you really need to have someone, like myself, to talk to you, educate you on what it is that you're getting. Because, like you said, there's so many people that have those type of policies. I come across them all the time. I have a gentleman that had a $1,500 policy because Global Life or whatever presented that to him, and he was paying pennies. And I'm like, what are you going to do with that? But what happens is, with those with most policies, most insurance companies, unless there is a clause that if you, die within a certain period of time, then they're going to, delay payout. Because sometimes they do additional investigation to make sure that whatever you told them was actually the truth. And sometimes, people say, oh, I'm not a smoker, or I'm not this, or I'm not that, and then they actually pass away from the very thing that they said that they did not have as a health issue. And a lot of these companies up front do not do the investigation of, your in terms of your health. They don't do a medical, and that's why a lot of us time will go to some of these companies, but they said there's no medical, there's no
no question asked. No question.
But in the long run, there's also not going to be a payout until they do further investigation. Now, most of the companies that I represent, they are companies that they are going to do their due diligence up front, and when something happens, or if something happens, then they're not going to delay payout. There is a period of time that may be within 30 days to 90 days because of processing paperwork. I've had, recently a very close friend that was a client that passed away, and the paperwork was sent, within days. And basically, the only delay is the fact that the family does have to provide death certificate and information so that they can send a check. But they have multiple policies from different, some of them before I have spoken to the mother. And so one of the policies they already released 30 days ago. And so it's very important that you don't just let somebody call you on the phone and or pitch you a life insurance plan via the internet without having the ability to really understand. And that's a big challenge, because not only is that happening, but also people that are dealing with you face to face, and they have only one product to offer you, and maybe that product doesn't fit you, but they're not going to say that because they're in a company that we consider to be captive, and that company only offers these products, but they're not going to tell you, oh, well, this is not the best for you. I think you should see this person over here maybe and talk to them. They're going to tell you what they have. And as a result, because the person is not educated first, they just buy anything. That's the key with what I try and do, is I try and do my best to educate. because the education lets you understand what it is that you actually need. I'm not selling you on anything. I'm educating you so that you're able to use the information to make an intelligent decision as to whether what I'm talking to you about is good or bad, or not just me, whether whatever else you have or somebody else says to you is right. And that's very important. It's really challenging for me. Sometimes I talk to someone about life insurance because they tell me, okay, I want a life insurance policy. I say, okay. Before I do that, though, I always give some education. But there's people who won't even allow me sometimes. Oh, no, I don't want to hear all that. I want you to tell me, how much can I get for this? And I'm like, well, if you knew better about what you needed, then why are you calling me? You need to just, take care of it yourself, because it's like going to the doctor and telling the doctor what your situation is, and how they should treat you, and you're not the person that's the expert. And so people have got to be willing to get information so that when they make a decision, because the decision they make is literally going to change their life, especially if something happens and they have the wrong policy and their family does not. And I've seen it happen, and it's very, very sad when that person does not have the right type of policy and their family really is struggling along trying to figure out how they're going to just even bury that person, let alone provide for additional coverage of expenses down the line.
You're listening to Wanda Honore, Sister Wanda Honore, a financial coach, giving us the rundown of life insurance, I think in general, but more life insurance, because the concerns in our community that I get. And when I heard our good sister on the Carl Nelson show, I'm going to give him that plug because we do steal his guests from time to time. And listening to her give out that great information to give guidance to the community. You're on 88.3 FM, the superstation for South Louisiana. Feel free to call. Keep us that number to call in.
337-534-0036. Get you in touch with us. We're talking about insurance right now and financial investment.
Some people don't want to talk about that. That's a talk that needs to be had. Let me ask you about this, Sister Honore. Giving control and access to funeral homes. I see a lot of people do that with their policy. I know that's a tradition here in Louisiana, and I know certain funeral homes work closely with these insurance companies, and some they will accept right off the bat, and some, because when people going through grief is a really downer thing for people when someone pass on, and people sometimes just give themselves or give all to these companies to manage every aspect of someone passing on. And I understand that. I get that. But sometimes we got to be careful. Tell us more about what you think. Give us your opinion about it.
Well, I think, first of all, if we can, that most persons should really consider having what they call a pre-needs situation, a pre-needs plan, let's say, where they have already selected what it is that they want to have happen. My godmother, who transitioned a few years ago, in fact, she was actually originally from Shreveport, but she lived out where I am in California. She had a plan that she had probably, I would say, over, because she lived till 95, probably over 50 years. Mm-hmm. And that plan, allowed her to know, so whoever was going to take care of the thing was taken care of. My father did the same thing. And so that's something that we can definitely consider, because sometimes maybe we can't afford to have a policy per se, but a life insurance policy, but we can get a pre-need plan put in place so that we can designate and pay on it and be able to have that already taken care of, so it minimizes any type of issues in regards to that. But in regards to insurance, funeral homes, and taking the insurances from the clients, it's something that, when my mother transitioned, I experienced, and it was beneficial because they handled everything. And then afterward, they gave the monies that were not
Right.
part of the plan back. So it's a matter of really trust and making sure that, again, you're very much educated on what it is that you want, how much you want to spend, because you don't want to, because you have a very nice size plan, give a plan to your to the funeral home, and they just find the most expensive items that they can to bury it in. By the time you get your anything back, it's very little, if anything, And so we have to again make arrangements. The things that happen that cost us the most are when we don't plan for it.
Right.
And unfortunately, funerals, because of the nature of the fact that it involves death, are one of the things that people don't want to talk about.
Yeah. And even
you're right, Mike.
And even cremation too. That's a new trend. Well, I call it a new trend. It's probably been going on, and we're seeing more and more funeral services being managed by these companies that are engaging in cremation. And a lot, we got people have traditions, and we have people have cultural traditions. They do not want to be cremated, and they got people making decisions about that. And so we know insurance in some cases covers the funeral. And I'm trying to just ask, does those type of services, if it's under a policy, will be covered? Cremation services, and it's probably less expensive, and some people want to make those choices. So I don't know if you see a lot of that trend in insurance situation.
Well, in regards to insurance, it doesn't have any impact on whether the insurance is based on the amount that you get, and it's based on the fact that you're no longer.
I don't know why I asked that question. I don't know why I went down that road.
Yeah, but in terms of the fact of the cremation, yes, there are more and more families, and that I know they're saying I don't want to spend money on funerals and services, just cremate them. And sprinkle their ashes or take them, put it in an urn somewhere, and that's it. And it used to be that cremation was very, very inexpensive. Yeah. But unfortunately now even cremation does cost quite a penny, because you have to have that whole process.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go out and actually sprinkle the ashes, because you can't legally. You cannot just take your ashes and just sprinkle them anywhere. They have to be disposed of or placed in certain places. The ocean is one of those places, and then there's certain other situations. And so they have various, they were kind of like a funeral home, I guess. They thought we have a place called the Neptune Society out here that you can go out on the boat and they'll allow you to sprinkle the ashes or what have you. So, so it's just really all of it is about planning and education, because the worst thing that happens when someone passes is that there was no plan. There was no discussion, because we did not want to as you call, I had a supervisor who had a young son who unfortunately had kidney disease. And, the thought that he could die was there, but it was not, something that was prevalent. He was moving around doing everything. And unfortunately, literally on Easter, they had a whole family gathering. He sat down and went to sleep, and that was it. And she found him, and now, it's, obviously the grief, but now there is no money in place to do anything, because she never wanted to think about it, because, as she said, she did not want to jinx his life. And this is a thought that we have. We don't want to talk about these things, because we think if we talk about it, it's going to be the equivalent of making it happen.
Yeah.
And that has got to stop, because by not talking about it, then we put the family in a whole different situation that we shouldn't, that we should have a whole different situation than they should be in, because there is no plan. There is no, thought of what's going to happen, and things have to pull together in a very short period of time while we're going through grief. And it's a horrible situation to have to deal with. And having gone through it again with family and friends, I really encourage anyone that's listening to please talk about what your plans are and how you want to be left, how you want things to be left when you are no longer here with your loved ones. And better yet, make sure you have the resources in place to take care of that. Because we don't want to just take care of that if we have a family, because also you got to think about if you have young children, and this goes to whether you're a young person or a person that's a little older that has children. You have to think about how are they going to be taken care of if
Right.
you do not have anything in place for them. Other information in place, having the wills, having the trust, things that make it where we are not just everything is going by what we think somebody thought or wanted to do, because that's when all of the disagreements come about and the problems come about.
And why, Keith, I'm probably I'm let you ask that question right after this. And why do you think probably that in some in our and I want to say our community, because we start using term black community and stuff like, I'm gonna say a lot of people I know why we are behind in that is economics. One of the main problems where we don't have these proper things in place, economics or traditions, or don't want to deal with it. I think I tend to think it's more economics, affordability in certain communities to have those things.
Well, I would say, based on my understanding and having talked to so many people about the subject, is that plays a small part, but to be honest, the most important part of why we don't have what we need in place is knowledge.
Okay.
Education and knowledge and the passing down of that information. If our families did not talk about this issue and it was taboo, then how is your child going to understand it, and where are they going to get that information? And so as a result, that cycle continues of not talking about it and not being able to make sure that this is understood, what we should do, what we should have in place. In addition to the fact that obviously, there were many times that we did not have access to the same types of resources that others had, from way back when. And so even though I don't try and take, what happened to us and make that the prevalent situation for why we are in where we are today, I do think that it continues to play a role, because as the information and the tradition and things that happen in other communities were not made part of our community, and we had to just figure it out, and a lot of us still haven't figured it out, it has kept us, behind. When other cultures that are that have a little bit more wealth, when a child is born, they understand that child is like, they're thinking, how long is that child going to live, and how can we make that child's life as good as possible by making sure that they have a policy that's going to have a cash value. I don't know if anyone remembers back when the president that we don't like to talk about was in office, but there was a conversation at one time about how when he was 8 years old, I believe it was, his father gave him $1 million. Now, imagine if we have, and that very well could have been part of a policy.
Yeah.
So we don't know that these are the types of ways that wealth is generated because no one's sharing. Companies like Walt Disney, everybody knows about Walt Disney, but how many people know that in order for Walt Disney to exist, a life insurance policy was the foundation of that empire? People know about McDonald's, but do they know that Ray Kroc, who bought McDonald's from the McDonald's brothers, used a life insurance policy to start out paying his key people? There are so many different stories like this that we don't know, that people can Google and whatever, because it's not information that's just being pulled out of the sky. Wealthy families understand how to use these financial vehicles because A, they want to have monies in places that are going to grow and create opportunities for themselves. And they want to make sure that they don't have loss on their money.
Right.
You know, we're not as astute when it comes down to putting our money in places where we think about the fact that you don't want to have loss. We think about, in order to be able to have a lot of wealth, we gotta take that risk. And that risk usually means loss. Well, wealthy families don't think about that and think money in that way. They want to put their money in places where there's going to be a very little amount of risk involved, and their money is going to make money for them. And so when it's all said and done, life insurance is the only financial vehicle where you can really put pennies in and get dollars out.
Okay. Brother Keith, you have a question before we log off? We're coming to the top of the hour?
No, I just wanted to say great dialogue to Sister Honoree. Great dialogue. We need that conversation.
We need to have it more often,
Yeah,
and hopefully we could get her back, and we could
more.
go into depth on some other aspects, because it's just so much a multifaceted subject matter in our community. We need to talk about that.
And thank you for bringing that dialogue to our listeners here at KIE 3.
Well, I thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this.
Give us your contact information, my sister.
Okay. Again, my name, Wanda Honoree, is actually spelled with a J.
That's my problem.
And I'm sure you guys all got Honoree, my distant cousin, the colonel that was out there helping during Katrina. But also, my phone number is 213-290-2078. 213-290-2078. My email, urbanfinancialliteracy@gmail.com. And I have a website, urbanfinancialliteracy.com. And anyone that wants to schedule an opportunity to talk to me more about, life insurance and, even maybe have a review of their health, feel free to go to urbanfinancialliteracy.com, and right on the front page, you can schedule an opportunity to talk to me. And one of the things I want to make sure that I also say is that all of the services that we provide, there's a team, you'll see the team on there, are free. And so you don't have to worry about, that's how I was able to get involved, because when I found out about this information, I didn't have any money. And I was trying to figure out, well, how can I even do anything? But the fact that the information was free, and that, it was freely, the information was freely given as well, that I was able to get educated and make important decisions that literally have changed my life. And I hope that others will take advantage, because, how many people are giving this information out free? And so I look forward to, some of your listeners, contacting me and, asking the very important questions. And whether you do business with me in terms of some of the products that I may have available or not, I would love to talk to you and help you, because it's very important. And finally, I want to say that September is Life Insurance and Wellness Month. So it's even more important for me to use this opportunity to increase the awareness of life insurance.
We got to thank the guests for coming on the show this morning. We got to thank Southwest Louisiana for tuning in. Make sure you check out the shows here on KIE 88.3, and the shows across the multiple platforms that we network with. And we'll be right back here next Saturday.
Yes.
Same time, same place.
It's
just People's Tech and Entertainment.
Sister Honoree, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And I'll promise I'll keep in contact. I'll promise I keep in contact.
All right. Well, thank you, and I hope you and the audience, have a very blessed day. And I thank you again for this opportunity to really, talk about this very important